Hello, thanks for clicking on this video. Today I'm going to be talking about 1992 and metal in general in the 90s. One of the comments that I see online a lot is Pantera and Metallica saved metal. I'll see that a lot, and then of course I'll see a lot of people thumbed it up. I don't know if it's 14-year-old kids who just got into heavy metal, or if it's kids who were like 15 or 16 at the time in the early 90s who just got into metal and then were like, oh hey, there's two new bands that are the only two metal bands that are on the scene here, Metallica and Pantera. When in fact the reality is, in 1992 and throughout the 90s there was a lot of bands releasing albums. There was still a lot of metal bands that were still together. The thing with Pantera and Metallica is they were both heavily promoted within MTV, the radio, through people you know, and of course in the magazines. So that's why they got the attention and everything. A lot of the other bands didn't. Weird contrast though, it was kind of odd how Metallica and Pantera were on, the top of the bill, the top of the heap, or whatever you want to call it, from 1992 and throughout the 90s. What's strange about it is because Pantera became a heavier band. Most of you all know this. They were a glam band, and then they got heavier. In 1992, releasing Vulgar Display of Power, their heaviest one yet. Well, Cowboys from Hell was also still kind of heavy, you know what I mean. But anyways, and then Metallica releasing the Black Album, which was their most commercial album and radio-friendly album up until that time. Every single other album was, of course, heavier. This was their weakest one. So anyways, once again, they were promoted and stuff, and there was a lot of bands that just did not get the recognition and or the airplay and or the time or anything else. It doesn't seem that way, because I know I'm not supposed to be going by just YouTube comments, but you see all these YouTube comments with people saying Metallica and Pantera saved metal, and then there's a lot of people thumbing it up. They didn't save metal. That's basically what my main point here is. There was just still a lot of metal happening and stuff like that. And okay, so in 1992 was considered the year, it was the full year where it was the whole grunge and alternative scene and everything happened. People were like, oh, metal's gone, metal has, been all that other shit. People like, oh, heavy metal is dead and it's no longer exists and all that other stuff. But other than, of course, Metallica and Pantera, which, of course, people didn't realize, and that's the thing. There was a lot of albums that came out in 1992. Things were changing in 1991, but 1992 was the full year where it was the year of the grunge and alternative scene. But these bands came out with these albums in 1992. I'm going to read them. A lot of people read off albums, and I can't memorize all these, so I'm just going to read them. 1992 heavy metal albums. Black Sabbath, Dehumanizer, Kiss, Revenge, Iron Maiden, Fear the Dark, Testament, The Ritual, Creator, Renewal, Saxon, Suicidal Tendencies, Did, Sodom, Tapping in Vain, Manowar, Triumph and Steel, Yngwie Malmsteen with his Fire and Ice, Wasp, The Crimson Idol, Megadeth, Countdown to Extinction. And then, of course, when you look at any of these lists of top albums, metal albums in 1992, Faith No More and Alice in Chains are on the list, which is kind of an odd, stupid thing, because Alice in Chains and Faith No More kind of fit into the whole grunge and alternative scene and thing like that. Wasn't really wild about those bands. I don't hate them. There's a couple of Faith No More songs that are okay. There's a couple Alice in Chains songs that are okay. But they were just like also wickedly heavily promoted, and I think overrated. That's for sure. They were okay, but they weren't as wild and great as many people thought they were. Metallica and Pantera save heavy metal? The short answer to that is no.